Dear students, as we prepare for the holiday of Shavuot, it is a challenging and complicated time for all of us. The situation in Israel seems to be getting worse by the day. The lockdown here in Toronto hasn't ebbed on any level, and in many ways, from an emotional perspective, we find this incredibly challenging. And now we find ourselves getting ready for another Yontif without the privilege of the extended family that we so yearn for and we are so incredibly excited about. Let me share a story with you that I think is incredibly meaningful. I think it has a beautiful message for Shavuos. Story is told that Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky was once sitting on an airplane next to an individual, and Rav Yaakov's sons and granddaughters and grandchildren in general kept walking over to him during the flight. Zaidi, are you okay? Father, do you need anything? Can I help you with anything? They brought him drinks. They brought him snacks, constantly checking on him and doting on him. And the individual sitting next to Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says, I don't understand. I also have children and grandchildren on this flight, and they haven't come over to me in the last 9 hours to check on me. But your grandchildren, they can't get enough of you. There isn't enough they could do for you. What's the difference? And Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky turned to the individual. He says, let me explain. He says, my grandchildren see me as a link in the tradition and the chain from Ma'amad Har Sinai, from the getting of the Torah, the receiving of the Torah. And as such, because of the fact that I'm older than them, I'm closer to that sanctity, to that Kedusha. And they recognize that. And therefore, they treat me with incredible respect. But you, and perhaps much of the world, see elderly individuals as perhaps a bit of a has-been. They're not necessarily keeping with the times. They don't necessarily know what's going on, and they're not necessarily always afforded the same amount of respect. It's a fascinating answer. Perhaps it's true in some cases, perhaps it's not true in others. But the idea of connecting to the Masorah and connecting to tradition, I think, is very apropos, and is really what the holiday of Shavuos is all about. Yaakov Avinu was a grandfather, and the Torah talks about the fact that Yaakov had the privilege of raising grandchildren. But beyond that, there are lots of statements in Chazal that speak towards the incredible nature of what it is to be a grandparent. The Gemara tells us, Kol HaMelamed et ben beno Torah ma'aleh alav hakatuv ki'ilu kibla mehar Sinai. That if a person has the privilege of teaching a grandchild Torah, it's as if they themselves personally were accepting the Torah of Har Sinai because they received the Torah from a different generation. Beautiful Gemara in Kedushin on Daf Lamed. And in fact, to go beyond that, the Gemara in Yevamos tells us that b'nei banim harei heim kebanim, that a person should treat his grandchildren as if he's their children because of the chain and the link in the Masorah. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs once put it so beautifully when he said, grandparents bless their grandchildren and are blessed by them. I share this with you because I think in many ways one of the greatest challenges in this lockdown and over this last period of time has been not being able to be with family, not being able to be with grandparents. But I think we're getting closer. I think many of our grandparents are vaccinated. Certainly those who live in Israel or the US have received the vaccine. And I think we're getting closer to being able to spend time with extended family, and maybe perhaps some of us already are. But if this lockdown has taught us anything, it's that we have to cherish these relationships. We have to cherish these opportunities, and we have to look to maximize them as much as we can. We have to look to get the most out of our parents and grandparents and recognize the quality time that we have with them and try not to take it for granted. The holiday of Shavuos is one such opportunity. I sincerely hope that we are all able to maximize that to the greatest extent possible. Spend time with your parents, spend time with your grandparents if you're able to, spend time with your siblings, try to learn Torah from your parents and from your grandparents, and recognize that they are that incredible link in the chain of Masorah that goes all the way back from Moshe Rabbeinu, passed down to us from generation to generation. Chag Sameach, and a wonderful Yontif to you all.